Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. First of all, I'd like to explain why I haven't been putting out videos lately, and the reason is that my camera broke down and I had to get it sent to Germany to get fixed, and that took 3 weeks, and now I'm finally back. So now it's time to pump out some new videos and to do more reviews and talk about all things role playing. And next, of course, I'd like to thank all the people who have subscribed to my videos. I really appreciate that you have subscribed and liked the videos. And if there are some things you'd like to see me review, drop a line in the comments and I'll be sure to review any role-playing product that you'd like to see on the channel. But without further ado, let's go into the next review, and that is Artifacts of Degenesis. Artifacts is a collection of different rules, new material that can be put into your game in a modular way that you can select which specific things you'd like to put in your Degenesis game. And it offers a wide variety of different things. So let's take a look what Artifacts has to offer. The book itself is really beautiful, well put together, hardcover. This time, of course, the typical Degenesis maps are missing from this product, but we have a very solid book with nice cover showing some stone, some cracked stone, and here early on the kind of theme of black and gold is established, where you have the gold letters throughout, and you can see here from the side that also there are these gold accents on every page. The book has 12 chapters, and it starts off with a chapter on legacy, and legacy being new rules designed for players to adopt certain backgrounds which give them bonuses or penalties depending on where they are applied. So the legacies is a part of expanded character creation where you can select things like entrepreneur, and this legacy will give the character certain benefits, and depending on the situation there might be drawbacks, and like potentials there might be some prerequisites, so that you need to have a certain concept or different backgrounds on a certain level, or even things like a certain age. These legacies are something that came about with Artifacts at a time when we had already created characters, and they have since not really been really enthusiastic about using legacies as a background for the characters. So for my players, I think it remains to be seen whether we will adopt legacies in play at some point. But of course that depends on when the next character is getting killed. I think these legacies provide different opportunities for role-playing and creating a deeper, richer background for your character. So in that sense, they could be very useful, but I know that some players are averse to accepting some negatives or penalties right at the beginning of play. The next chapter, Scars, is a lot more interesting from my point of view as a creator of shared identity, and I think here the game goes a long way into giving the group of players joint goals and responsibilities, and providing mechanics for this type of play. The chapter on Scars establishes different alignments, and these are like overall goals of your group of players. and whether or not their concepts are aligned with these alignments or opposed to them, they might get benefits or penalties. And these alignments, when completely supporting the group, meaning that all their concepts are in affinity and they create a so-called constellation, they can provide pretty hefty benefits so that some XP costs are radically diminished. So you have 6 different alignments, things like ambition, loyalty, chance, destiny, dogma. And you can choose, and revenge of course, and you can choose whether your players, or the players can choose whether they will follow one of these different goals, and on achieving certain milestones in these long range goals, they are rewarded with so-called scars points. And these scars points then can be used to gain bonuses, and they can be used to replenish the number of ego points that the characters have. And ego points in Degenesis are a kind of meta currency that can be used to boost skills and different activities throughout the game. So for example, starting off, our group of players had the chance alignment, and they played out in this chance alignment throughout Degenesis Will, and on the completion of Degenesis Will, they have now chosen to move from chance to a revenge alignment, and revenge here being more targeted towards NPCs like Yas and the Merciful or Nullify. And of course, these benefits that they received from chance were pretty remarkable because they were in affinity and in fact with a constellation, so this meant that they had big bonuses for their XP costs for skills that they shared. Now that is over, and in revenge they are getting a little benefits, but they are working towards a shared goal. Further on, the scars points will establish or support a infamy rating, which is a new kind of background shared by a group of characters, and infamy is gained when the group is emptying their joint scars pool. So if they have gained scars points which are in a pool shared by the group, after they have spent 10 of these, they will gain infamy 1, meaning that they become backward heroes. And this infamy is kind of a fame that determines how well known your characters are known in a certain area. And after spending 20 more scars points, they will gain infamy 2, meaning they will become local celebrities and so on. So this means that after burning through enough scars points, they will become progressively more famous, and this will result in more attention to the group. I think very nice mechanic for handling prolonged adventuring activities. Then there are some rules for realignment, and then there is more information about cult collectives. So these would be play groups with a single cult, meaning that all players would be, for example, Spitalians or Chroniclers, and they would have shared goals. There are different names for these different types of cult groups, like Corps for the Spitalians, Cell for the Chroniclers, and Squad for the Judges. This is also a nice explanation of how these different cults could work together. An intercult group could work together, and provide some examples of their joint play. The third chapter is about survival and provides a number of rules concerning journeys and traveling. These are pretty welcome in Degenesis, as the main rulebook did not provide a lot of information on this. So here you have different restrictions and rules on traversing different terrains, pushing the limits, and how to rest. And with this rest chapter we come to chapters on food and water and different weather and climate conditions, and these are pretty thoroughly covered in this chapter 3. And this provides a nice set of rules on how to handle travel in adverse conditions, like the cold which could be experienced at the ice barrier or heat of Africa. At the end of this chapter also a number of survival gear is listed, and at the end of the book there is a thorough listing of all the different prices and details of all the gear presented in the book. The fourth chapter on health goes into detail on injuries, something that was really shown in the Degenesis rulebook, but here it's given a lot more detail. So you get things like complications, which are effects which can be added on top of a wound when a certain number of triggers has been achieved in the damage roll. So you have separate complications for flesh wounds and others for trauma. Of course, the trauma ones being more serious, resulting in unconsciousness, disfigurement, shell shock, concussion, and reopening of wounds. There is also a section on treating injuries and handling infections mainly, and this provides quite a lot of information on different medical procedures, how to combat infection, and also there is information on different folk medicine or cultural cures in different areas, like Paul and Borka and what you have in Degenesis. I think altogether a very nice chapter. If you want to present more complications for the players, of course, this could be applied to the NPCs as well. Then there are some other parts with new rules. These are kind of a collection of different activities. There's something about feats of strength and enhanced performance, how that is made possible. More things about burn use, and also new medical equipment. And I think that especially advanced prosthetics will be something that might make into our games, as the players might be losing body parts in encounters with people like Steel. So the chapter on health, chapter 4, is very dense with a lot of new information. Chapter 5 is about combat, and it provides information about some combat maneuvers. There is rules for abandoning fight and different flight factors, something that was not discussed in the main rules. Very useful set of rules if you want to determine how quickly attacking clanners might leave the battle, or if you want to make your characters roll and see whether their willpower is strong enough to stay in the battle. There are different rules about weak spots, delaying, knocking out, and feints and disarming, and this provides quite a few things that you could add on to the regular combat in Degenesis. Chapter 6 on energy goes into detail about different energy sources, energy transfer and storage, and while a very nice addition, it really does get into a lot of detail and a lot of small things. So you have the measurement of energy in quanta, how to manipulate energy transfer, and then going into even petrol and coal, and then application of all these different energies. So if you want to add more detail into this part of your game, this is really your chapter. I think this kind of tracking of energy and maintaining energy levels in different equipment is something that could easily go unnoticed in a game, especially if you are heavily involved, for example, in combat or investigation, and you might not be checking how much the players are using their tools and equipment. So could be something that should be maybe tracked even more carefully in some games, and perhaps this is something that could be implemented in the character sheets. There is information about different applications, from windmills to generators, and even the famed weapon Null Pedestal makes an appearance here. Chapter 7 goes into economy, and this, I have to admit that this is a chapter that I have only just glossed over. It discusses economy in some detail concerning the Neolivians and their concessions, and as it is something that we really haven't encountered in play, I have not gone into very much detail in reading this chapter. Chapter 8, the arsenal, is a lot more relevant for our games, as it details different types of weapons, modifications and qualities, and here you will get a lot of different rules about black powder, brawling, armed, melee, different new weapons, handguns, rifles, and some super efficient and deadly weapons like the anti-material rifle. All of these weapons are detailed then at the end of the book. So this is a nice addition if you want to expand a bit the selection of weapons and you want to present new deadly weapons for use by the PCs or the NPCs. Of course, this could lead into a bit of power creep in games if you are handing out these weapons right and left to different people. If there's something that the NPCs have, you can be sure that the player characters will want that as well. Chapter 9 goes into Primal Ingenuity, and this is a really interesting chapter, and one of the things that I applied to our games quite quickly, as it presents how to harvest and use psychonautic remains in a Degenesis game. If you're not familiar with the game as such, the psychonauts are mutated creatures created by the so-called Primal virus, and they come in different varieties. So this chapter details how you could use and apply these remains of dead psychonauts in different ways, giving every psychonaut type a couple of pages and details whether you are using their flesh, blood, or different body parts, and what are the benefits. Of course, with the benefits come a number of disadvantages, as you are sure to see your spore rating increase if you are integrating these parts directly into your body. So this is something that could be very useful for players or NPCs, but it can also lead to some really surprising effects. We have seen some of the use of these psychonautic remains, for example in the Black Atlantic with the black marbles used by Basco in the game, and I think this really expands on these initial things that we've seen in the adventure and gives a lot of choice and a lot of opportunities for discovering and using these types of parts. There is also information about hunting psychonauts, different kind of techniques and different kinds of items used for that. And then there is a section on common primalism, so using parts from different types of mutated animals which are not psychonauts. I think this chapter 9 is one of the best chapters in the book. A lot of detail has been spent on coming up with different uses for psychonautic remains, and this is something that provides a nice additions to the game and new things for the players to discover and discuss. Chapter 10 is about potentials, and as we've seen, potentials have been listed to some degree in the main Degenesis rulebook, but now they have here been collected all together from all different sources. So potentials have appeared in different Degenesis books with a certain NPC having a certain potential, and these are actually being introduced all the time. So now we have a nice collection of different potentials. They are listed for each cult, and there are also a set of common potentials which are accessible more or less by everybody. And the rules remain pretty much the same, that there are a number of prerequisites, or there might not be prerequisites, and there are different effects, and these potentials are usually rated on 3 levels, with 3 being the maximum. Potentials are something that our players have not been really using in the game that much. They got the first potentials on character creation, but have not been really updating them, and I think this time will come that they have exhausted different options for skill and attribute development, and then we'll focus more on the potentials. Of course, the NPCs do use their potentials all the time to their benefit, so I think this is something that the players will have to discover and take into use. So there's quite a few pages about different potentials for all the different cults, and these are really useful talents or powers that you could use to survive, discover new things, and make your game more, let's say, more effective and easier for your character. Then we are coming towards the end of the book with a chapter on artifacts, and here again we have a treasure trove of different artifacts, and this lists a set of bygone artifacts with a huge variety, really expanding on the different artifacts that we've seen before, for example in Jaman's Will or in the Degenesis rulebook. There are weapons, there are methods of deception and infiltration, drones, things for storing memories or maintaining things untouched by time. So a whole lot of different things, ranging from performing enhancement or spying on other people. And I think the work here again has been really inventive in bringing out new artifacts, and what I like to see is that there's also a list of their different prices and estimates on what they would cost and weigh and so on at the end of the book. So this section on the artifacts is really helpful and useful, and there are a couple of things that it's really easy to put in your next adventure. Of course, I think you should use artifacts pretty sparingly, as if they are thrown in the game without a lot of thought, they could really unbalance things that are happening in your game. The last chapter is on memetics, and it provides a really deep introduction into the use of memetics in the game and provides you with a list of different memetic protocols which the NPCs are using. And this chapter also provides rules for the PCs to start using memetics, but of course there is a certain set of requirements that have to be fulfilled before your players could start using them. Memetics in Degenesis are largely the area of sleepers and marauders and really come from the Project Tannhäuser recombination group aspect of the game, and thus can be quite powerful. In Degenesis, a number of sleepers and marauders have been using these memetics to control other people, the less advanced groups in the game, and they can basically brainwash other people into doing their bidding. And of course, if you give this type of power to your players, then that could also unbalance the game pretty quickly. But I think it will be interesting to see how much an effect this will have on players when they discover really the use of memetics and how that has been used to mold and shape the world of Degenesis. And this really ties into, for example, books like Justitian, where in Mark you have different types of NPCs capable of using memetics, let's say Mother of Ravens for example, and the whole core of Exalt and the groundworks of Exalt is tied around the idea of memetic programming and erasing said programming. So this is something that is really quite central to the game, for example with the Paler Cult. So as such, the memetic protocols, in my view, in addition to this Primal Ingenuity, is maybe one of the best parts of this Artifacts rules book. The rulebook finishes with a set of charts, and here you have basically the different details of all the different items, potentials, artifacts listed, sorry, not potentials, but artifacts, pragmatic remains listed in the book. So their qualities and effects are listed here, how much energy they might require and their costs, and which cult might have access to them at the start of the game. So this finishes the book. So to sum up my view on Artifacts, I think this book is a really valuable book for anyone who wishes to run a Degenesis game, wants to introduce new things into their Degenesis game, and requires information about something that has been already established in the rulebook, but now is really much more detailed. So all these rules about different things like healing, traveling, fighting, they really complement all these day-to-day activities that might happen in your game, and then the rules on alignment and constellation give new support for your group and your group play. So these are really great things to add to your game. And then things like I stated, Primal Ingenuity and memetics are providing new and different options for your players and NPCs, and provide more variety to your game in the way that new items can be introduced, or to see how the sleepers and marauders are controlling other people. The Artifacts book is quite a dense tome of new information, and as such I recommend it highly to any Degenesis campaign for any GM who wishes to expand on the different things in the Degenesis world. So this book has a very nice amount of art also, and looking at the number of creators involved in this book, I have to say that, guys, thanks for a great job. This is a great addition to the growing number of Degenesis books. So this is the review for Artifacts. If you like this review, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more reviews. Thank you.